listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Talk indeed. Folks, welcome to the program tonight. This is Scotty Roberts. I want to thank you all for being here. We are no longer in the Makeshift studio, at least at present, for a few more days until we get back down there. We don't have all our lighting effects the way we used to, but that's okay. Welcome to the show. This is Scotty Roberts. As I said, you're listening to the Intrepid radio program, as I said, and over on Odyssey Radio, ODYSY1.com, our parent network, you're going to find some rebroadcasts of this show in their audio format. And here, over on my YouTube stream, youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts, you are going to see the live show for the immediate future until we figure out all the stuff till we're back in the saddle full-time in the full-time studio. So I want to thank you for being here and being at the home studio. You're going to hear probably some noise from the children out there. They've all been given instructions as to what to do, how to act, and behave themselves and conduct themselves with decorum while I'm doing this show. But of course, Rainey is out at a scout parent meeting where all the parents meet with the scouts and so on. And so she's there as one of the den leaders. And she's been there since 6:30. So hopefully she'll be home in not too long. And we won't get too many interruptions from the small children. And so welcome again to the show. So I changed my name to Ask Scotty. What, do I have a typo somewhere along the way? I suppose I could check it and find out. But welcome to every field guy. I saw you first, so welcome. And Doug Stack, welcome to the show, brother. And check in on Sam tomorrow if you want. Just give him a shout or give him a holler on Facebook. We're getting our camper back tomorrow, which is nice because we've been bunking up in the other one and getting this one repaired. That'll be back in tomorrow. I won't be there until next Tuesday. So Sam is doing okay. All those of you who follow my Facebook and know Sam and have talked to Sam, give him a shout. Say, hey, Sam, hope you're doing okay. And Carly Sagan, good to see you. I appreciate your being here, even if you're not here now. And I do want to give a shout out. I was reminded by Carly to wish Roger a very happy birthday. So Roger, I want to wish you a happy birthday. I want to thank you for all your support. I want to thank you for being here. And we all think of you and Carly all the time, and Kinsey, of course. And so happy birthday, brother. I hope it's a good one for you this year. And everybody say, give him a nice birthday greeting. Teresa Dantone, good to see you. Thanks for welcoming me back. I am just really tired lately. She said, welcome back. And it made me think of that. My body is just tired out. And I don't know what it is. It's like, every muscle. I could use a session on the rack. And I'm not speaking derogatorily of my wife, although that's helpful too. I could use a good stretching and a good cracking and snapping, not to the point of injury, but to the point of getting some things worked out in my body. Really tired out. I don't know if it's a combination of the travel, combination of this, combination of that, and the other thing. Yeah, traveling will do that. I used to travel all the time, and I never felt this stuff. So anyway, I'm from like the middle of my back up. I am tight. I have pain right in the center of my spine, right? Just, I'd say it's kind of equal with my shoulder blades. Might be from sitting up. They've taken away the recline factor for all the chairs on the airplanes, at least on Spirit Airlines. I guess they think social distancing. You can't recline back. You'll be too close to the person behind you, but you're crammed in to the person that's shoulder to shoulder with you. I don't get their reasoning on things. So there it is. High altitude kills back. So it killed mine yesterday. That's for sure. And so who else we got in here tonight? Steph. Good to see you, Steph. Glad you made it in tonight. And Matt Finn, Master Finn, good to see you. Glad you've resumed your daily duties and you've taken us out. And Michelle Canham Free, good to see you. Glad you're here. Soul Sister. And what else we got? Who else we got? Who else am I seeing? Have I seen anybody different? Not yet. So if I missed you, I only missed you because I missed you, not because I deliberately missed you. So thank you all for being here. And boy, you know, I wanted to talk some more about the stewardess and the, oh, there's my wife. My beautiful, amazing wife. Come over here.
Shut your face.
Shut my face. Nah, 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 nah. Here's Rainey, folks. She's here. How you doing?
I'm doing.
How was your scout meeting?
It was fine.
Good. You smell like an orange.
Because she's eating oranges.
There it is, because she's eating one.
Mm-hmm.
And there is Rowan. How you doing?
I'm too small.
I don't even see it. Here, look. Now move over. There you go. There's Rowan Claire.
Roman
Stop.
Yeah. So, there you go. Children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Go.
Ben, come on.
Yeah,
let's
go brush your teeth. Take Ellie upstairs.
Ellie would,
Stop for a second.
don't hang on, Mom. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye now.
It's my job. See ya.
Ooh.
Go
Okay,
upstairs.
bye-bye now.
Go do what I said to do. This is riveting live radio, folks.
Yeah.
So that's what I told the kids before I came on radio. I said, how about all of you, now that it's 8:45, I said, everybody go upstairs and start getting ready for bed.
Sure.
Ellie immediately was, I'm not going to bed without Mom being home. And I said, I didn't say go to bed. I said, get ready for bed. Brush your teeth, wash your face, wash your hands, put on your pajamas. There she is. And there's Ellery.
He's lying. This boy is lying.
Oh, yeah, I'm lying, all right. Why? What was the truth of the matter? What's the truth? You tell us.
You said nothing.
I said, put your jammies on, do your face and do your face and hands, and brush your teeth.
That's might as well.
There you go. Now Flynn's the only one that doesn't come in here. You know why? He didn't want to be on camera. So there you go. There's Ro.
Oh, I'm dying.
All right, girls. I need you guys to go.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Mom and I are going to talk for a couple of minutes while you guys go get ready for bed. Give me your other
You
hand.
couldn't go out.
Where's your other hand?
No. You have the wrong hand.
There. Now jump down. Go off my
No.
stool. There you go. Thank you.
Oh,
All right.
Are you going upstairs?
Doug Stack says, wash your booties.
Plug it in.
Hey, Roger Rabbit. Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Birthday. So what'd y'all talk about at Scouts tonight?
What did we talk about? We What?
I said I was touching your butt.
You aren't touching my butt. Can I just turn
Yeah.
that a little?
Yeah, turn that a little.
So we did our monthly like planning. So we have
Mike Yehudi.
base camp is coming up. And
Space
then
camp?
Base.
Oh, base camp.
Yeah.
Base camp is the all-nighter.
Yeah. I'm not signed up to go, and I forgot to say I wanted to be signed up to go. So maybe now I don't have to
Oh, maybe you don't have to go now.
Oh,
And I'm going to
and,
be out of
um,
town.
right?
It's okay. It's great activities for kids. Not something when you're in your 50s to 60, or in Rainey's case, or your low 40s. It's really not something you want to do. I'm going to stay up all night and play games in a big gymnasium and rock climb on the fake rock face and stuff
the
like
rock
that.
climbing part's fun.
That's
but
fun.
I don't want to stay up all night. But everything kind of ends at 11 o'clock. They put a movie on so the kids quiet down,
Yep.
but they don't sleep.
They don't sleep.
So I told the
And
kids
you're
we could go, but we're leaving at 11.
And you get to sleep on these World War II retro folding canvas cots.
I don't know that they're supplying cots this year because COVID.
COVID. You know that virus that doesn't care, that doesn't carry or pass on objects? That COVID, yeah. So anybody want to come and take all my kids to an overnight?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
And then we have the spring camp out coming up, so we had to plan that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when is that?
May 15th.
Ah.
So They're going to try to get a hold of the River's Edge and see if they have something available, because the other
They should.
campground is not getting a hold of us back, so we can set it all up.
Oh, those other people.
The other people.
Yes.
The family
so-
campground is not calling back.
So
they're going to check with River's Edge.
I guess.
Yeah, and then because half of the people that are in Cub Scouts have children in Boy Scouts, and Boy Scouts is coming up tomorrow, so everybody's like, "Ooh, is Scotty back? Is he excited to go? How's he gonna do?"
Oh, everybody's asking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
I'm doing fine. Don't worry, I told them all that you were just in the ER on Monday for high blood sugar. I share it all. And
Thank
then
you. I haven't even told them.
They said, yeah, Scotty was in the emergency room on Monday because he forgets to reorder his medications and went 2 weeks without them.
I forgot to reorder my insulin stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I'd be fine if I just control my diet a little better and watch what I'm eating. No, any of you who are diabetic who know blood sugars, you're supposed to be between 70 on the low side and maybe 120 max on the high side.
140.
Well, 140?
Yeah, 120 is
I
kind of
was
normal.
told 110. That's why I bumped
Well,
it up
if
to
you go up to
120.
140, you're probably okay.
And I was at 525 and I was wondering why I was feeling sluggish and wobbly. Well, that was it. So I went and had that taken care of. Well, they didn't do much. They gave me a prescription, and because my insurance runs through Wisconsin State, it was not good for prescriptions down there. So it would have cost me $500 to get the shots I wanted. And there wasn't enough time for Rainey to mail them out. I ordered them back home. And so I went without until the last day. I finally popped $100. They broke a box and gave me one.
Yeah,
so I'm okay now.
Walgreens.
Let's see. A friend of mine died from not keeping up his, it skipped up his diabetes like that, Scotty. Thank you, James.
Yeah, tell it to him.
No, I keep my diabetes up. I keep all my stuff up. I ran out of meds. And there I was, too far from home to order any without paying a fortune. And which I didn't have at the time. And so I got my shot and I got pumped back up. And it was kind of funny. What was it? 2 days after I got the shot, all of a sudden I was down at like 60 to 62 was my blood, because I was feeling low. I get kind of shaky a little bit. It's like, whoa, my blood temperature's, my blood sugar's low. And I start sweating. It was on the day of the planes. I was on the plane and I got off the plane in Orlando and I didn't know. Wow. I had fallen asleep and I thought I was just zoned out, and I shambled off the plane and I went like, whoa, I know what that is, because I'm dripping sweat too. So anyway, have you ever used Good RX? We have to buy certain meds in emergency. That saved us hundreds of times. No, I haven't. I've heard of that, Roger Rabbit. I should look into that. And I wouldn't have talked about that at all.
Yeah, he wouldn't have.
Somebody brought it up.
Except I blabber.
Yeah. So anyway, I think everybody in Scouts thinks I'm frail and old and
They know
and
you're not frail. But they did say that there's supposobly cabins for rent. So if you decide you don't want to sleep in
I can pay for one.
a wet and damp cave, it's $65 to rent a cabin.
Okay. Well,
So
per night?
per night.
Okay. It's like
Still
a
not
hotel.
bad.
Like a cheap hotel.
Yeah. And
Like,
you'll
I
have
wonder
all
if it has
your-
a vibrating bed.
Yeah.
Flynn will probably want to stay in the room with me if I go do that, though. He won't want to sleep in the
Well,
cave. Unless his
Try
friends.
one night. Try one night in the cave, and if it doesn't work for either one of you,
Why don't you try one night in the cave? Oh my goodness. So yeah. Yeah. Florida, when you're trying to go home up north, that's Spirit Airlines. Yeah, I could have taken a Delta flight. Delta's a hub up here. I could have gone any number of ways, but I took Spirit Airlines. And because it was only $171 round trip, you jumped any other airlines, it jumped to like $350 to $450. And then I had to fly from Houston, as I already mentioned the other day. We had to drive to Houston 2.5 hours from where we lived in Lake Charles, because flying from Lake Charles, just tack on automatically another $450 on top of anything else. So that's what it costs. So sorry about the lighting. The lighting really dicks with us.
It really makes my double chin stand out. I'm not liking it today. Hi, my name is Rainy. I don't have a double chin.
I don't have a double chin either. Why, Rainy, how do you do that?
Oh,
You must
yes.
work out a lot.
Doug, man, your innuendos over there.
What did Doug say this time?
Rainy, can we try a night in the cave?
Try a night in the cave?
So
Why?
funny.
What do you want to try in the cave, Doug? Huh?
Huh? Yeah, what?
So, well, I'm glad you came in when you did.
Yeah.
You know what it's been like trying to see my wife since I've been home? Always something going on.
Yeah. I worked full day yesterday. I worked full day today. And then I had scouts tonight.
Yep.
I don't have to work tomorrow, so we'll have a little bit of time.
She's like,
tomorrow.
I'm laying on the sofa, feeling kind of worn out. And she goes, okay, I got to go to the scout thing. Bye. And I go, hey. Did you forget something? You give me a kiss? And she's like, I don't have time.
Gotta bend over.
I got to bend over to do that? I'm like, yes. So
Yeah.
it was fine. So I'm touching her butt right now.
Mm-hmm.
And a mighty fine one it is. I'm just passing that on for those of you who care.
Yeah.
So anybody else wandering? Charlotte Malaspina? Claudette.
Maybe you need
Sorry-
to put your
sorry.
glasses on.
Well,
What
I
the
put them on.
hell?
It's at that distance where it's just a little too far for my bifocals. If I lean back here, it's great for my uppers. But if I take them off, I can see them if I'm like way down here. So I am Robert V, said Doug Stack. I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. So
Kevin Miller wandered in.
Kevin Miller, good to see you, brother. Glad you made it in. We're going to get to talking about the El Arish stone and try to wrap them up. We're going to get some LOL. You could be touching her boob. For all we know, we can't see.
Yeah.
Hey, Steph. No, if I was touching her boob, it would look like this. See? Now look at the camera. Look at the camera. Look. Do you see anything? See? You can't see nothing.
They can see that.
So,
Ah!
no, they see the reaction to that.
Yeah.
Careful there, woman.
Oh, geez. Anyways, it is 9:20 here, and it is past bedtime for the kids. So
Yeah, go get
I'm
those
gonna get outta
miscreants
here.
to bed.
and let you pretend to be all professional and stuff.
Yeah, how can I do that now? So,
Yeah, you already talked about butts and boobs.
boob, you say.
Boob.
Boob, I say. All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Have fun with those
Bye.
kids.
Bye. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Don't let Scotty make you fall asleep.
Oh, yeah. Shut it. Shut it.
He'll try to touch your butt.
Shut it. Nice butt. Just saying.
Thanks.
Oof.
Okay, bye now.
Bye. She looks great. She has a great shape. I like that. That's fun.
Come on, Stinky.
She's talking to the dog, not me.
No, come on, big Stinky.
All right. Okay, folks. Now that it's just us again, let's get at it here, huh? We've only got so much time, and I do want to try to cover and maybe finish, maybe not finish this stuff on the El Arish stone. And I'm going to be referencing a paper that was written in 1986 by Sean Mewini, and it's about the El Arish stone revisited, and where there were there ever duller legends and a more senile fantasy, said Gaston Maspero. So late in the last century, an unimposing shrine of the Ptolemaic times, as we talked about, was found at El Arish. And El Arish is near the Nile Delta. Not quite, though. It's off into the desert. And it's above the Gulf of Suez. So as you go up from the Red Sea. And the inscription had suffered accordingly because it had been used as a cattle trough for water and for feed and things like that. And some 47 lines only remained of the inscription that was on the El Arish stone. And in this text, Velikovsky saw a parallel Egyptian account of the Exodus. Now, do you all know who Velikovsky was? Just in case you don't know who he was, if I can spell it right. We're talking about Immanuel Velikovsky. And he lived 1895 to 1979. He was a Russian, Israeli, and an American scholar. He's authored several books, pseudo-historical interpretations of ancient history, including the U.S. bestseller Worlds in Collision, which came out in 1950. And earlier, he'd played a role in the founding of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and Israel. And he was a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. And Velikovsky's work is frequently cited as a canonical example of pseudo-science. And he's been used as an example of the demarcation problem. We won't get into that. The demarcation problem is the question of how to distinguish between science and non-science. Now, the problem is, over the years, the things that he was debunked for and laughed at and jeered by the scientific community, many of his theories later were found to be, you know what, woefully accurate. And so he looks into mythology and ancient literary sources, including the Old Testament, to argue that the Earth suffered a catastrophic close contacts with other planets, principally Venus and Mars, and in ancient history. And in positioning Velikovsky among the catastrophists, the British astronomer Bill Napier noted, Velikovsky is not so much the first of the new catastrophists. He's last in line of traditional catastrophists going back to medieval times and probably earlier. Velikovsky argued that electromagnetic effects play an important role in celestial mechanics. He also proposed a revised chronology for ancient Egypt, Greece, Israel, and other cultures of the ancient Near East. He put all these theories forward. And the revised chronology aimed at explaining the so-called Dark Age of the Eastern Mediterranean. That's about 1100 to 750 BCE. And reconciling biblical history with mainstream archaeology and Egyptian chronology. And so now, I mentioned it the other night too, if you all know who Laird Scranton is. Laird wrote a book on Velikovsky's theories. And I cannot think of the title. You can look it up. Look up Laird, Laird, Laird Scranton, Scranton, I think it is. He and his wife, Risa, are good friends of mine. He wrote a great book on Velikovsky and his theories, really supporting and justifying many of his theories. So Velikovsky believed that the use of historical information could be elicited from things like the Egyptian account of the Bible, on this of the Exodus, on this El Arish stone, confirming that the plague of darkness and the miraculous parting of the Red Sea passages actually happened. And he believed that useful historical information could be taken out of that stuff, by means of which the Pharaoh of the Exodus and the route taken by the fleeing Israelites might be identified. Now, I think we've identified those things. You've heard me talk about these things enough, that I believe that they used the Wadi. Remember the Wadi Tumalat, which is that Wadi, that arc that goes from basically the land of was the land of Goshen and curves over to the tip and spills you out onto the Bitter Lakes, or the Sea of Reeds at the top of the Red Sea. Shallow lakes, we talked about the geological events that could take place there, where it's been recorded to have happened more than once, is that strong east winds blowing out. If you go up northeast from Egypt, there in the Sinai, where do you end up? You end up in Israel. So coming from the Negev down in that region, blowing in, and it had the effect of almost drying off the very shallow, higher portions of land beneath the lake, the Sea of Reeds. And it would leave a passable walking area. And once the wind stopped, though, those waters could come back almost tsunami-like. And this is one of the possible geological explanations. Now, for it to have happened at the same time that the Egyptians were crossing and the Israelites were crossing, the Egyptians were pursuing them, that I think could be the miraculous. So it's out there. I'm denying the miraculous didn't happen. So we've talked about all those things before. So my interest kind of aroused in the El Arish stone inscription because in many respects, it provides an excellent example, not only of how not to analyze a text, but how not to conduct a scholarly debate. And this text has been the subject not only of fairly lengthy discussions by Velikovsky in 2 of his books, but also of attacks and counterattacks by his critics and his defenders. And in spite of the fact that a number of important points have been raised about its interpretation, the 2 sides have been able to agree on virtually nothing concerning the nature and the significance of the inscriptions on the El Arish stone. And because every discussion of the sources to date has been incomplete, the issues may still be clouded by certain doubt. And that's the problem. Good night, Robert. Robert V. You're heading to bed. Work tomorrow night. Good night. Thanks for coming in. And so moving on with this, in the biblical account, well, first of all, the text has been translated several times of the El Arish stone. And we read some translations of it the other night, mainly by Shimka Yakubovici. And there are 2 full publications with text and translation that you can find. The first was made by F.L. Griffith in 1890 in English, and the other by George Goyan in French in 1936. And these are the sources used by Velikovsky. And some of the differences between these 2 versions have a bearing on Velikovsky's interpretation. He doesn't really consistently follow either translation, but relies now more on one, now more on the other. Both are reproduced, and you can find them online. And the thing about this is the same kind of thing I initially have criticized Zecharia Sitchin for in his works on Nibiru and the 12th planet and all of that and the Anunnaki and things. He did not translate very well. He did not do his scholarship. However, Velikovsky, on the other hand, is somebody who was the scholar's scholar, the academic's academic. So I see him as having gone into this perhaps trying to prove one thing, as opposed to allow the thing disprove what he believed. Now, in the biblical account following the plagues of blood, the frogs, the lice, the flies, a disease of cattle, boils, hail, and locusts, comes the plague of darkness. And it says this, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And then Moses stretched forth his hand toward the heavens, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. And they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings." So that's the way the story goes on that plague of darkness. Now, writing in Worlds in Collision, this is what Velikovsky found in the El Arish inscription. The same description of the darkness as in Exodus 10:22, he says, and he quotes it. It says, "The land was in great affliction." This is from the El Arish stone. "The land was in great affliction. Evil fell on this earth. There was a great upheaval in residence. Nobody could leave the palace. There was no exit from the palace. During 9 days, and during these 9 days of upheaval, there was such a tempest that neither men nor gods, the royal family, could see the faces of those beside them." Velikovsky continues his comparison on the following page. He said that both sources, the Hebrew and the Egyptian, refer to the same event, can be established by another means also. Following the prolonged darkness in the hurricane, the pharaoh, according to the hieroglyphic text of the shrine El Arish stone, pursued the evildoers to the place called Pai Kirati. Not Karati, Kirati, Khiroti, Pai Kirati. And the same place is mentioned in Exodus 14:9 by saying, "But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and overtook them encamping by the sea beside Pi Hahkirath." Now, according to the El Arish, or to the scripture, or I'm sorry, the El Arish stone, it was the Pharaoh pursued the evildoers to a place called Pi Kirati. According to the scripture, he pursued them to Pi Hahkirati, Keratoth. I'm sorry, a variation of the same name. And the inscription on the shrine also narrates the death of the Pharaoh during this pursuit. Under exceptional circumstances, it says on the stone, "Now when the majesty fought with the evildoers in this pool, the place of the whirlpool, the evildoers prevailed not over his majesty. His majesty leapt into the place of the whirlpool." This is the same apotheosis described in Exodus 15:19 that says, "For the horse of Pharaoh went in with chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them." Now, that's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, Field Guy, that's a good point. The light parted as something happened, and then there we are. And here we are, I think. Matt Finn says, "For me, the base of the story probably came from the ecological effect of the eruption on Thera. Most likely, if the timing fits." A good way to check that, Matt, and I brought this up before, according to the biblical account, 40 years after the Exodus, after the Israelites sacked Jericho, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho and the walls came tumbling down, as the old Negro spiritual says. Negro spiritual by way of description, not racism. And that was dated, the destruction of those walls and the destruction of Jericho, which left an 800-year gap between its occupations, unoccupied for 800 years, took place right around, they say, archaeologically, 1405 BCE. You go back 40 years, what do you get? 1445 BCE. What's the date of the Exodus that I proposed? 1445, 1446 BCE. So there you go. There's a big thing to look at, Matt Finn. You can look into those dates. Now, when did Thera erupt? I don't know exactly. But the chronology, the biblical chronology, seems to match the chronology of the pharaohs and the chronology of the destruction of Jericho under Joshua. And all of these things start to line up, and you start getting your dates out of it. So let's see. It goes on. Now, on a later page in that same volume, Velikovsky returns to this subject again, and quoting this line from Psalm 66, where it says, in Psalm 66, "Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads," which he interprets as signifying the tossing of the Egyptian host into the air by an avalanche of water. Now, referring to also in the Egyptian source I quoted before, on the shrine found in El Arish, the story is told of a hurricane and of a prolonged darkness when nobody could leave the palace, and of the pursuit by the pharaoh, Tuitom, Thom, not like Tui Tummy, Pharaoh Tummy. Hey, I'm your Pharaoh, Pharaoh Tummy. Buy my merchandise. No, it's Tom of the fleeing slaves whom he followed to Pi Kirati, which is the biblical Pi Ha Kirath. And his majesty leapt into the place of the whirlpool. Then it is said he was lifted by a great force. This was on the El Arish stone. It's debated, but as late as early 1500 BCE. You're right. They say that the El Arish stone could date back as late as 1500 BCE, which would place it, what, maybe 50 years or so before the chronological dating of the Exodus that I hold to, that many hold to. So which one is correct? Did the stone date back that far? Can they date it accurately? They're saying it's got to date. They're dating it by content. You can't do what's it called? The organic carbon dating with inorganic material like stone. So they're dating it by the content of what's in the inscription, the shape, the way it's carved, all of that. And they say around 1500 BC, which could be 1450 BCE, 1445 BCE. We don't know. My keyboard gave me fits, said Matt. I gave up. What do you say? Debated, but as late as early 1500 BCE. There you go. I've had that happen too, Matt. So don't sweat it. So Velikovsky discussed the El Arish inscription again in greater detail in his book, Ages in Chaos. And it was published 2 years afterward. And what he had to say about it there is something that's been a matter of debate for a long time. The opening shot in the controversy over the interpretation of the El Arish text, so far as I'm aware, was fired by Howard Margolis in the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Margolis's review of the article was written in reaction to the September 1963 issue of the American Behavioral Scientist, which eventually grew into a book, The Velikovsky Affair. And in April 1964, Margolis's article appeared under the title, Velikovsky Rides Again. See, the scientific community did not appreciate Immanuel Velikovsky. And now the opinions in it are interesting and forcefully expressed, but this was no masterpiece of scholarship. Margolis was careless. He was overconfident in his slamming of Velikovsky. It's kind of the way, I'm not comparing myself to a Velikovsky, but some of the criticisms that I've received from people out there who've elevated themselves as being their finger on the pulse of the scientific community and have tried to take me to task on things. They've tried to call me racist, if you remember, because in my article about the movie Noah, a review of the movie Noah, I talked about how Noah was considered to be racially pure, not racially, racially pure, but he was considered to be pure human being. In contrast to the impure human blood, how is it made impure? According to the mythology, by celestial beings intermingling with humans. And so he called me a racist for that. And so there are no pure human beings. I said, did you really actually read what I wrote? I'm not talking about races amongst blacks, whites, reds, yellow, whatever your skin color may be. I'm talking about the difference between human versus, according to the myth, non-humans, celestial beings. So when you've got that going on, is that racist? Yeah, maybe so. Maybe I'm pro-human instead of pro-mixed human. So where did I see Scooby-Doo in there? Scooby-Doo did an episode on Nibiru. Believe it or not, really? One of the old ones or one of the new ones? So anyway, this goes on. The article that was written against him is sprinkled with misspellings. So apparently the guy needed a good editor. You should be able to edit your own words, but occasionally I even have misspellings. And not only did he reveal no sensitivity to the issue of the intellectual freedom, Margolis used insulting language not calculated to establish communication with Velikovsky's supporters. He opened by stating that Velikovsky's work, as clearly as anything can be in this world, is plain hokum. There's a good 1960s word for you. Here is the gist of his analysis. Now, here's what Margolis said of Velikovsky and the El Arish stone. Except in the most general way, Velikovsky offers no explanation of how it's possible that things could happen the way he suggests. As a consequence, there are limited opportunities for a technical argument with Velikovsky. As a result, Velikovsky must be met on his own chosen ground, with an examination of his use of the accumulated records of human existence. As anyone who spends a few hours in the library checking Velikovsky's sources will discover, Worlds in Collision is, if nothing else, a matchless compendium of how you can prove anything if you're only careless enough. If you wish to find refutation of Velikovsky's arguments, merely to look up the sources he cites in his footnotes. Now that's what Margolis said of him. And the only specifically named sources that Margolis looked up were the El Arish inscription and Augustine's City of God, with the former getting most of his attention. Unfortunately, Margolis was not aware of Velikovsky's latter comments in Ages in Chaos, and he looked only at Griffith's translation. And he went on to raise some very serious charges. He said, "Now," says Margolis, "if you look up the actual inscription on the El Arish stone, you notice that some curious things. For example, the two incidents of the storm and the leap into the whirlpool are not sequential, as Velikovsky presents them. They are described as taking place at widely different places, at widely different times, with no relation between them. And they involve not the same king, but two different kings, neither of them named Tawitom. And there's no mention of the pharaoh pursuing his fleeing slaves to Pi Kirati or any other place. In fact, there's no mention of fleeing slaves at all. But there is mention of a place called Pekarti, which Velikovsky alters into Pi Kirati, so making it more similar to the place actually mentioned in Exodus, Pi Ha-Hirath, which Velikovsky is altered into Pi Ha-Kirath, further enhancing his evidence. But Pekarti is not the name of the place near the whirlpool. It's the place where a king, not the one king who leaps into the whirlpool, catches and rapes a lady. Furthermore, the king does not leap to his death when he jumps into the whirlpool. Rather, to quote from the inscription, his legs became those of a crocodile, his head that of a hawk with bull's horns upon it. He smote the evildoers in the place of the whirlpool. In fact, the whole inscription has nothing to do with the historical events at all, but is about the mythological god-kings of Egypt, from whom pharaohs were to claim descent. And the king who leaps into the whirlpool after his enemies is none other than Ra, the great sun god of Egypt. Now, that's what Margolis wrote of Velikovsky, and in part, and the El Arish stone. So, hey, what did I see here? Who came in? Scott Allen, good to see you. Siani Reese, good to see you. Glad you're here. And you have tomorrow off. That's fantastic. You did get a reading from Mother Ella, which was great. That was the only highlight of the week. And 3 out of 4 kids sick, hubby sick at the beginning of the week. I've been battling a cold all week, having parents and family come over for the weekend for the birthday and the kids' first communion. Boy, yeah, you've had a rough week. I'm glad you're getting tomorrow off. That's a good thing. So, as this goes on, the reaction to this attack at the American behavioral scientist was very sharp. ABS editor Alfred de Grazia, he wrote to the editor of the Bulletin, threatening to take legal action if he did not repudiate the many distortions in Margolis's article, quote unquote. Now, Eric Larrabee was promised space in the Bulletin for a reply and then denied it later. Velikovsky was invited to submit a rebuttal, but he would not consent to enter into a debate with Margolis on matters of Hebrew and Egyptian philology and paleography. And instead, he submitted Venus, a youthful planet, which was rejected. In its October issue, the American Behavioral Science counterattacked. Under the heading Notes on Scientific Reporting, de Grazia reprinted Margolis's article in its entirety, followed by an itemized list of 54 alleged tricks and errors in the article of Margolis's. And he keyed to the text. Here, de Grazia denied every single accusation Margolis had made over Velikovsky's handling of the El Arish inscription, point by point. And he accused Margolis of giving a preposterous and irrelevant account of the text. Now, you can see how some of these great scientific debates have gone on. This is something that happened in the early to mid-1960s. Most of us weren't there to see this stuff or hear about it in the news or anything. If this were happening today, it'd be all over social media and certain chat rooms and stuff like that. But this is one of the great arguments over Velikovsky. And my scorecard does not tally necessarily with de Grazia's. But Margolis really came to grief over the rendering of one place name, a name which occurs only once in the text. And Griffith rendered it Pekharti, Pekharti. At issue is whether Velikovsky was guilty of misrepresenting the evidence to make his identification with the biblical Pi Har Kirath look better. And here Margolis was made to look ridiculous and hopelessly out of his depth. Whether he was or was not ignorant of the elementary French required to read Guyane, and as Ralph Jurgens asserted, he did not do so. And in Goyan's version, the place is Pi Karoti, Kharoti. In Worlds of Collision, Velikovsky did change the spelling to Pi Kirati, Khiroti, or Pi Kirati, without explanation. But in Ages in Chaos, he tacitly corrected that to Pi Karati with an A instead of an I. So adding in a note that the explanation, adding in a note that the vowels in the translation of the Egyptian text are this conjecture of the translator. The name can also be read Pi Kirat, or Pi Kirati, or Pi Kiraiti. So all those different things of the same word. So this may be perfectly true, and though at least not the translator's conjecture, is presumably based on a knowledge of the Coptic language that was carved on the stone. And while Velikovsky's was not, this is a small point, and the name is similar enough to Pi HaHirath of Exodus 14:9 that they could well be the same place. And you see this all throughout many of the named places in Scripture. You can see different names in historical records, but they meant the same thing in the same place. Judo, chop, chop, as Field Guy says. So, hey, Alan Stiles, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the show. What time is it anyway? 9:49. We got some time left. So, in Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision, he spelled the biblical locality Pi Ha Kirath. That's Pi-Ha-Khiroth. It's like when I talk about the Nephilim as being, or the Watchers as being known in the Hebrew as the B'nai Ha Elohim. This is Pi Ha Kirath. And in Ages in Chaos, Velikovsky's other book, he calls it Pi Ha Hiroth. He takes the K off with Kirath beside it in brackets. And it's all very proper. It's a very proper way to show translations. Ha, he explained, is merely the definite article in Hebrew. So Margolis was lectured by de Grazia for not knowing. So when Margolis, in his criticism of Velikovsky, didn't know this about the Hebrew language. Boom, tank. So there goes Margolis's arguments. And he says that, and this is what de Grazia said. He said that het, H-E-T, and ket, K-H-E-T, that het and ket are two different letters in Hebrew, as in Handel and Bach. They are pronounced differently. He argues as if the original text of the Old Testament was written in King James Version or something. Chach is in Hebrew what the is in English. Margolis should have known this, or at least read it in the footnotes of Worlds in Collision or Ages in Chaos, before he made any kind of criticism of Velikovsky's interpretation. All right? Now, De Grazia denied all the rest of Margolis's allegations. His arguments are something that have been examined over and over and over again and written about over and over again and talked about over and over again. But for the readers of The Velasky Affair, which appeared 2 years later, it was Ralph Jurgens who raked Margolis over the coals again. He said, his vulgar and thoroughly irresponsible article is filled with misrepresentation and misquotations, jeers and sneers, bald statements of unfounded charges. But Jurgens had a lot more to say about events behind the scenes than about the contents of the El Arish stone, the text on the stone, or the points under the debate, or under dispute. And according to Jurgens, quote, from the confused arguments presented by Margolis, the only fact to emerge are that he does not understand that Egyptian was written without vowels, and that he is not even aware of the use of the ha in Hebrew as the definite article. Now, by the way, as I'm reciting to you this great debate that went on over Velikovsky's writing of the El Arish translation, can you see what I have meant and I've stated several times? Language means something in these ancient texts. Knowing what the linguistics say can send something we've understood this way on this course in a totally different direction once you've figured out exactly what the linguistics say. And I was just talking to my friend Dave Potter yesterday when he picked me up from the airport and drove me home. We were talking about this stuff. And he's some advanced Mason, and he knows a lot of junk about history. And we've talked history for 30 years, Dave and I. But we were talking about this very thing. Remember, I say anything that you read scripturally or in ancient text, there's 3 things you have to remember. 1, the context of what's being written by the author. Why was he writing what he was writing? 2, the way the audience to whom it was being written. So that context. Who was he writing to? And then number 3, the understanding of the audience of what was being written to them. What would their understanding have been in their times, their place, their interpretations? And so you have to start looking at all of those things in order to interpret text properly. So when you come across ancient text, especially biblical text, it's not just what it says. Sometimes you've got to dig into the original language in which it was written and find out why is it stated that way. And when we talk about, say, God in the Old Testament, we read that it's been translated in many languages, God. Well, what's the word that's being used? There's many words in the Old Testament. We've talked about this before. Elohim being the primary word used to describe the name of God or who God is. Elohim said this, Elohim did that. And we interpret it as God in English. God did this, God said that. Well, Elohim, when you take God and you define the word God in the English, you get one meaning of what God is. You go back to the Hebrew, Elohim, and you start breaking that down, and then you see the B'nai Ha-Elohim, those who are of the Elohim. That's the watchers. So Elohim, the name used 3,000 times for God. El is the name for God. Ohim, of many. God of many. God among many. God amongst many. It can be interpreted all those ways. The B'nai Ha-Elohim were those who were of the God of many gods. So you can see how that breaks down when you start getting into language. So let's move on for a few more minutes here. What time we got? We got 9:55. We got at least 5 minutes left, maybe more if we want to. In another essay in the same volume, Livo Steccini, there's an Italian name for you. He called Margolis's slam piece an outrageous caricature of historical documentation. According to Steccini, Margolis's misquoted passage after passage after passage after passage referred to statements that did not exist, submitted erroneous translations, and subverted the most elementary rules of linguistics. I say linguistics. It means a lot. When Moses was at the burning bush, remember I've talked about this, it blew my mind when I learned this linguistically. Moses is at the burning bush and he asked God, whom shall I say sent me? God said, it's none of your business what my name is. So that's what Moses was after. He says, you tell them I am sent you. I am that I am. Remember the famous phrase? I am that I am. I am that I am is what he's saying. That I am over there, that's me. That, of course, was found to be a Sumerian phrase or a Mesopotamian phrase, if you will. Ancient play, which meant I am that Enki they speak of. I am not that I am they speak of. I am that Enki they speak of, because it was a word play in Mesopotamian, in Sumerian. So it's that kind of a thing. And so understanding linguistics, if you don't study it, you've got to rely on people who do. I look to Michael S. Heiser, a great Old Testament scholar. And I quote him a lot in my early books. So anyway, recently in his Velikovsky's Sources, Bob Forrest took up the El Arish text again, and quite independently made many of the same points made earlier by Margolis, kind of slamming Velikovsky, that there is no mention of fleeing Israelites, only of invaders, and that the Pharaoh is not drowned, he becomes a tower of strength, that Pekarti is the place where Seb seizes Tefnut by force, not as V. Velikovsky has it, the place where Pharaoh catches up with the evildoers, and that whereas Velikovsky has the hurricane and the darkness, the pursuit of Pekarti in the events at the Palace of the Whirlpool as connected incidents in the life of the same Pharaoh, Tawi Tong, the shrine itself has them in as distinct incidents in the lives of 3 different pharaohs. So Forrest, like Margolis, consulted only Griffith's English translation of the El Arish stone. And later, Forrest got an English translation of Goyon's French version and considered rewriting his discussion, but abandoned the project. Although aware that Velikovsky also dealt with this text in his Ages of Chaos, Forrest confined his comments to the treatment in Worlds in Collision. Is Griffith's translation so different from Goyon's that dependence upon it could account for these gross discrepancies? Did Velikovsky present any new argument in Ages in Chaos that would cast everything in a new light? And now Velikovsky's introduction to the section Pi Ha Kirath in Ages in Chaos has a rather defensive ring. It's also almost as though he were responding to the critics directed against his earlier discussion in Worlds in Collision. Or perhaps anticipating a challenge, Velikovsky called Goyon's rendition a new attempt to translate the text, which he said deserves a new definitive translation. And so according to Velikovsky, not even the sequence of the text is conclusively established. If this were so, he might feel justified in rearranging the narrative in a different order from that followed by the translators. But one can't shift the various episodes around these translations. You can't shift them around freely. We're not dealing with a pile of fragments. The text is heavily damaged, but what remains is in one piece. So it's not all broken up. It's these flowing narratives. And so the shrine itself was hollowed out from a single block of stone, and it stands about 4.5 feet high, and originally was fitted with doors on this opening and probably contained a statue. The text is on the outside, on the back and both sides. And the section on the right-hand side is almost entirely destroyed, but the other 2, the back and the left side, sections are well preserved, except at the very beginning and the end of each line. I used left and right here in this ordinary sense, from a point of view facing the shrine. So Griffith uses these terms in a reversed orientation, looking outward at the shrine. So there's a lot more to this, and we're out of time. There's the shrine at El Arish where we really start digging into it. And in his introductory description of the shrine, Goyan follows the usage that's adopted here and labels the sections A for the right, B for the left, C for the back. But to the reader's confusion, during the course of his translation, he reverts to the same terminology as Griffith, so that on page 29, section B is labeled left side. Nevertheless, Griffith and Goyan follow the same order, no matter how the sections are labeled. And since the panel on the right side is almost entirely destroyed, it's merely a question of whether panel A precedes panel C or vice versa. And that the first alternative is correct seems obvious enough just from reading the first lines of each panel. But the correct sequence can be established in another manner, which we'll talk about. There's more on this. This strange text, Velikovsky wrote, and this is kind of where we're going to leave this for tonight because we're going to have to pick it up tomorrow. He says, this strange text has been regarded as rather mythological, though kings, residences, and geographical places are named, and an open invasion of foreigners described. The names of deities appearing in the royal text are royal cognomens, and in this description, the name of the king Tom, Thom, is written in a royal cartouche, a fact that points to the historical background of the text. Now, this is a rather naive argument. The Egyptians pictured their gods as being ruled by kings, just as they themselves were. And in primeval times, they believed Egypt had been ruled by gods living on earth among men. And these facts are well known. So now, we've got to stop there, or we'll absolutely have, I don't know, we'll have to start delving in a weird spot. So, folks, there it is, the El Arish stone. You see how much more there is to this when you start digging into it deeper. And there is one guy out there who's very well known in history, Velikovsky, who maintains it's a story of the Exodus, and he had two critics who maintained that he was full of shit. And yet those critics were pulled apart by other people. So anyway, I haven't really paid much attention to the chat room. I love the I am statements in Matt Finn. I do too. Who is with me in thinking Jesus was at least married? Siani, I believe he was married. I happen to believe the wedding at Cana, his first recorded miracle, turning the water into wine at the wedding at Cana, was his own wedding. And I think there's a lot of earmarks in that passage that make it so. We'll talk about that again sometime. Trust me on that. There is so much in that text that points to Jesus being the groom that it's mind-spinning. Let's see. Triumph of Eden TV, I've never heard of. No willy-nilly, says Michelle Cannon-Free. I agree. Siani says, I can't wait for tomorrow. I had so much stuff happen today with the guides, council, and revelations. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. My lead in the council has been talking my ear off today. You'll have to fill us in on that, Siani. Let's see, Matt Finn. That's awesome. He says, I always encourage everyone to find their personal truths, explore that aspect of their beings. And I've got to get back to work. I'll talk to you all later, says Siani. And Matt Finn, Captain, from state to state obligation, you persist in your steadfast role as our commander. For that, I both love and respect you, brother. Thank you, Matt Finn. I love and respect you too, brother. Thank you for being here. And everybody who's here, I want to thank you for that. It means a lot to me that you're here. And so, you know what? Right now, I think we're going to go out. So everybody, you know what? Live long and prosper.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.